Now, with the greatest of pleasure, respect, and admiration, I would love to introduce to you Reverend Patrick Pollard, our, our spiritual leader, our mentor, and our friend, with his wonderful message for this week. Reverend Patrick.
So thank you so much for all your support. Thank you, Mary Jo, for your wonderful testimony. It is nice to know that lives are being changed every day for the better. I want to welcome everybody to this new day and the science of mind. As said earlier, it is a correlation of the laws of science, the opinions of philosophy, and the revelation of religion applied to human need and the aspirations of humankind. It is also the study of life and the nature of the laws of thought. Basically, that's what we teach. The conception that we live in a spiritual universe, that God is in us, around us, and for us, and there is nothing against us. So today, I chose a topic, and the topic is, who are we? Because that's a question we must all answer. Who am I? Who are we? We are emanations of the divine, and upon a realization of that truth, brings with it powerful responsibility to model the true meaning of the principle of inclusion. Because if we do not practice the principle of inclusion, something is out of balance in our understanding that we are divine beings created in the image and likeness of. You see, we are emanations of the divine. And upon a realization of that truth, we must remember our responsibility. How do I see myself? How do I see my fellow human beings? In what likeness do I view others? I must answer those questions to me, to myself, in a way that enhances my presence in the world and the presence of those I identify. Our eyes and our brains are fooled into seeing something that is not really there most of the times. I'm sure that you think you've seen something, and when you really understood it, you really didn't see it. So we are challenged to see other human beings in the same likeness. If we see them as different beings, where have I fallen short of the greatest realization of all time? And that is made in the image and likeness of God. How does God see all human beings? Exactly as they are made. Yes, in the image and likeness of God. That's how God sees us. Whether or not we're recognized by others, by other human beings, God still sees us as made in the image and likeness of itself. That's how God sees us. So I must bravely heal my biases so that I can embrace all human beings and all life with love. So if you find yourself trying to make someone else less than yourself, less than created in the image and likeness of God, that's a bias. And that's something we all have to heal. Cognitive judgments have a similar feeling of truth. It is difficult to believe that our personal experience does not perfectly capture the objective world. We don't always capture it. We miss things. In the Bible, you find in the Gospel of John, chapter 7, verse 24, it is said, judge not according to appearance, but judge righteous judgment. That's a word from the most spiritually balanced, perfect human being. Judge not according to appearance. Have you found yourself not obeying that wish, that desire, that almost not a commandment, but it is a powerful suggestion. Judge not according to appearance, but judge righteous judgment. You see, our fallible visual system does not always capture what is really there. Unfortunately, that's true about all human beings. It's something called perceptual illusion. This is a reality. We often suffer from perceptual illusion. In Science of Mind on page 38, Dr. Holmes says this, and I quote, "Suppose one is laboring under the idea of limitation. His whole thought is a picture of limitation. Where is he placing his mind? Is he not, in substance, saying, I cannot have and enjoy good things? And he's demonstrating that he cannot have. Because when we say that on our minds, you know what happens? The mind is obeying our declaration. It may take time to reshape the basis of his thought, Dr. Holmes says. He must commence by saying, I perceive that because I am what I am, because of this infinite thing that overshadows eternity and finds its abiding place in me, I know that good is now mine, all good. Therefore, there is no mental coercion in this at all. We do not will things to be done. Things are brought into being not by will, but by the power of the self-assertive truth. How much can one demonstrate, according to Holmes? How much can one demonstrate? Just what one can believe. How much can one see? How much can one accept? How much can we find in our consciousness that is no longer repudiated by our own denials? Whatever that is, that much we can have. So if you find that you make an affirmation and it doesn't come forward, check to see if you denied it, if you contradicted it, if you said something contrary to the affirmation that you said. You may have forgotten that you had an affirmation out there. So it's easy to contradict yourself, and it does not work. How much can we accept, Dr. Holmes says, how much can we find in our consciousness that is no longer repudiated by our own denials? And then he says, whatever that is, that much we can have. That's on page 39 of the Science of Mind. These are powerful statements by Dr. Holmes. And I urge you to pay attention to it, because too many times people make an affirmation or they think of something they'd like to do, accomplish, and receive, and then later on in life they contradict it. And that contradiction shows there is a disbelief. There is no conviction in what was first stated. What is the truth about you and about myself? It is that you and I are divine beings. And you know what? We are made in the image and likeness of God. We are likeness and emanations of the divine. So we must banish what appears to be a perceptual illusion of separation and embrace the truth. The truth is, you and I are made in the image and likeness of God. That cannot change, even if we tarnish ourselves, even if we think we changed our minds. But we do not experience it, you see, if we deny it. And your experience of being human is what this really is about. What are you experiencing now? Is there joy, peace, happiness, abundance, prosperity in your life? And are you happy? How are you seeing other human beings? Do you degrade other human beings? Do you feel superior? See, this is something, these are questions that we do not want to face, because we have to face the truth. And how many times we have denied the truth about ourselves. We must banish what appears to be a perpetual illusion of separation and embrace the real truth with capital letters. There is value in getting clear about our identities, individually and collectively. And we are bringing that to the table. That's what you bring to the table. Standing in our power, celebrating the identities of others helps us foster the principle of inclusion. That's one of the Science of Mind basic principles. Inclusion. We do not believe in separation. We believe in oneness, because oneness is a divine quality. It's a quality of God. And you cannot function happily and successfully in a world, even if it appears that you have material prosperity. Where is it registering in you as a joyful, happy experience? There is value in getting clear about our identities, individually and collectively. And what are we bringing to that table, as I stated? Standing in our power, celebrating the identities of others helps us to foster that same principle I mentioned. Things that overshadow eternity and finds its abiding place in me, I know that good is now mine, all good. There is no mental coercion in this, and that's on page 38 of the Science of Mind. No mental coercion. This is what we bring to the table. We do not will things to be done, he said. Things are brought into being not by will, but by the power of self-assertive truth. Self-assertive truth. Inclusion in action, alive and well. That's where we want to be. So I thank you all for listening, and may God bless you and have a wonderful day. And remember, everyone you see is a divine being. And if you find yourself with an underbreath judging them, maybe because of what they look like, where they are, what they're wearing, what they're not, if you find yourself in judgment, you are bringing a contrary energy into your life experience. God bless you. Live in love and harmony. Forgive everyone, love everyone, and know that we are all one in the same spirit of life. God bless you. So now, this part of our service, we usually open the mic to people who want to ask a question, people who have heard within themselves a question. Before I open that question, let me just read this to you, because I found it in my stuff that I've saved over the years. You are as young as your faith, as old as your doubt, as young as your confidence, as old as your fear, as young as your hope, and as old as your despair. And you will find that in Living the Science of Mind on page 177. Thank you all.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions here? You can feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. Oh, there is. Bob has one. Why don't you
Bob
repeat?
has
what you put in?
something, yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Bob.
Hello, everybody. We are
Go
all
for it.
made in the image and likeness of the one spirit, which
Yeah.
I'm not sure has an image that we can perceive other than as love. So I was thinking, Reverend Patrick, I know I have difficulties with relationships, and I'm sure everybody in their human experience has difficulty with relationships.
Yeah.
Wondering if you would give us an example of a spiritual mind treatment that would help to remove some of the things that are in the way of experiencing love with everybody.
So a spiritual mind treatment has seven stages, and we call them 7 steps. I mean, 5 steps, 5 stages. The first one is recognizing that God is one, and that God is a principle of oneness, that God is the creator and sustainer of all life, not just ours, all life. So we have to start off there, recognizing that the oneness was, so to speak, injected into every life that exists today. So once you have that, conflict arises between you and somebody else. Take a time to pause, to contemplate, to go into silence and think about how this is, what is causing this dissidence. And it's usually a judgment on your part, or maybe on the part of someone else, but then when you do that, you judge them too. So you have to accept the responsibility. If you want the resolution, you have to change how you perceive the person with whom you have some dissidence and a disagreement, and try to unify again as one and the same. We are made from the same one life, sustained by the same one energy, and we are all individuations. We are all manifestations of the one source of life, and that's God. If God is the center of your being, nothing can come between you unless you allow yourself to doubt, and then you have a problem. I hope that helps. Because that's the spiritual solution. Regardless of whatever the problem is, there is a spiritual solution to this issue, and we have to go there with it. So we have recognition, unification, that means becoming one with what you recognize, realization, declaring what you now know since you've realized something and you joined with that realization, and then you give thanks for the awakening moment and let it go. Let go of the issue. Turn it over to the Great Spirit, to the law of our being that knows how to manifest that. You see this circle around my head, on the right side of my head? That circle shows the spiritual mind treatment. On the top part is the recognition. And then you have, in the middle, is the realization. You come to the place where you finally realize, and and once the realization is accepted within your mind, it's acted upon by the law. And that's the law of mind there. And then where the peak at the bottom is, that's the manifestation, the answer to your prayer. And when that happens, you give thanks, and it starts going back the other way. Now you give thanks, you have a better feeling about yourself and a greater realization of oneness back to the top. This thing you can't miss if you use it right. Okay. There was another person who had something they wanted to ask. There's 7 people in the chat room already.
True. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Reverend Patrick.
Yes.
How are you?
Fine. I saw you. That's good.
Yeah, okay. How do you debunk, or how do you convince people who say, I have my God, everyone has their God, and they have different names. Okay, naming of God by different names is not a big issue, but everyone who names their God has different attributes, so there is no unification of attributes, and the only way one can have unification if all the people who say my God really define, and then let us eliminate things which do not make sense, and unify the concept of God or concept of the truth. God is truth, righteousness. So everybody's righteousness is not the same way as another person's righteousness. So how is this world going to reconcile? So I let it for anyone, including you, to reply.
Well, first of all, here's a basic truth that you have to start off with. No one is willing to change until they feel the need to. Regardless of what you say to somebody, if they do not feel the need to change, they are not going to be listening to your part of the story. They're going to be stuck in their own stuff. So what you do in that case is give up the judgment of that person, give up the feeling that that person is rejecting what you have to say, and you get all energetic about it. You have to have compassion and forgive that person and pray for them that they will wake up and feel the need to change their ways, to accept the truth of their being. Now, if their truth doesn't sound like your truth, you have to adjust the way you see them. And if you see them, you give them a chance to experience what they desire, what they think is good. Give them a chance, let them see it. And if they come back with an argument, that means they didn't find it. If they come back and they're still unhappy, they didn't find it. So now you have an opportunity to say, look, I didn't want to argue with you because I don't think that's the way to help us become one. We need to find a neutral grounds to start our agreement here. What is neutral here? Where can we find neutral? Have that person participate with you in trying to find a neutral ground. And I'll tell you something, that's the biggest step, the biggest breakthrough you can have. Because when they feel the need to change, they will seek the neutrality. They will seek where there is a commonality for both of you to stand together. People don't have to accept everything you say as your truth because their understanding is different from yours. But you need to find common ground on which you can walk together, arm in arm, and feel the freedom to still think whatever you want. Because we're all divine people. We're all divine manifestations of God. Whether or not we believe it, that hasn't changed us. So you got to accept that and stop trying to convert people. That's not your business. Your business is to put the truth out there. And if they have questions about it, they'll come to you. If they say, oh, that's nonsense, let them alone. You know that down the road, the light is going to shine for them again. You know, pray for them, be compassionate, be loving, and cleanse any feeling of separation you have from that person. Cleanse the way you see them, the way you think about them, and let them be a divine being in your mind, seeking to understand clearly how that is.
Now, may I add that in the letters of Paul says that ours is a spiritual warfare, not carnal. Now, most of the time, when people disagree on the concept of spirituality or the concept of God, they are not adhering to a spiritual warfare, but they go to the other alternative of a carnal warfare. And that's where where United Nations, where they have a body called the World Religions.
Yeah.
What are they doing? How come somebody is not using the stick to get the word out, and also U.S. and other countries, in order to protect, in order to overcome the wrong thinking, are taking carnival carnal actions rather than spiritual actions. I haven't seen much of when there is a dispute. There's nobody. They first shoot the messenger and then examine the message. So first, let's clear up the wrongful message and not kill the messenger.
Well, you don't have to kill the messenger, that's for sure, but you have to allow the messenger enough time and space to wake up. Because some people, you cannot wake them up. It doesn't matter how hard you try to shake them. So continue to play meditation music around that person, so to speak, until they are calm enough to hear something from inside, until they have a need to understand their divinity. Because everyone, without exception, whether or not they agree together, everyone is made in the image and likeness of God. So you tell me, God is not limited to one denomination, so to speak. God is with everybody. We wake up to find better ways, easier ways in which to unite with that oneness. And you can't force that. You have to let people be where they are. And as I said before, principle is no one is willing to change until they feel the need to. So
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that question, and what a wonderful explanation. We really can't change. All we can be is an example.
Yeah, exactly.
What a great question and answer. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, do I see anyone else trying to get our attention here if they have a question?
Who's that? Who's trying to get your attention?
Yeah, I don't see anyone trying to get my attention, so I think we
see.
might be okay with the questions today.
All right.
Oh, I have a question. This is Lauren.
Lauren,
Hi.
hi, Lauren.
Hi. Hi, Reverend Patrick.
Hi, Lauren. Good to see you.
Hi. Nice to be here. The last quote that you read from Living the Science of Mind, page 177.
Yeah.
I just was curious if you could say more about what made you decide to share that quote today.
Okay, let's go back to the quote. We do not will things. Is that one you're talking about? We do not will things to be done. Things are brought into being not by will, but by the power of sort of, no, that's a different one.
That's not the one.
That's
it's
not the one. That's a different one, actually. Okay.
It's the one from Living the Science of Mind. I actually went looking for the book and I found it. It's you are as young as your faith.
Oh,
as
okay.
old
All right.
as
Okay.
your doubt.
I have that. Yes.
Yeah.
You're as young as your faith. Wow, what was that? As old as your doubt, as young as your confidence, as old as your fear, as young as your hope, as old as your despair. 177 in the Living the Science of Mind. So what that is saying, it's showing you on what side of the scale are you living? You know, are you living as a young person or a person, an older person? Are you saying that older person is better than younger people? Are you saying that younger people have more life than older people? You're not saying that at all. You're just saying, looking at yourself. How do you think of age? Is this something by a number of days, or is it in your mind that you are wasting away? So youthfulness is not necessarily the passage of time. It is the understanding of aliveness, because the passage of time can make you feel older if that's where your mind is, if you have your attention based on that. But if you think about your sense of who you are and your connection to the one life, to God, then age is not something that you have to be afraid of, because you are an eternal being, regardless of how many days you spend on planet Earth. You're not done when you leave planet Earth. As a matter of fact, you get much younger when you leave planet Earth. You get much more aliveness because you don't have an aging body anymore. You see, you have a body, you're not your body. So don't think of yourself as your body. So if your body is aging, that's fine, that's normal, that's very natural. So this question of young and old is all about my self-perspective. How do I see myself? If I live in fear, I age more physically, because physically we are in a time. We are in a time of a session of time and space, whereas outside of the body, as I said, you are not your body. You have a body. Who is the you that has the body? And when you think of yourself that way, age is a matter of understanding or lack of. It has nothing to do with how old the body is. You are as young as your hope. You see, you could be 90 years old, but if you have hope, you don't feel the age, or as old as your despair. If you feel despair, you could feel despair at age 21. You can feel hopeful at age 91. Which do you choose? That's the problem we have, isn't it? We have to recognize who we really are and our relationship to that eternal presence that individualized itself and called it you. That's what happened. God individualized itself and called it you. Look in the mirror and say that to yourself. And when you could start believing that, looking yourself in the eye, you are getting close to a wide awakening. Close. I hope that helps.
May I add something, Reverend Patrick, to this question? That's why Jesus said, unless you be like children, it is very difficult for one to enter the kingdom of God. And when he meant the children means, when a child doesn't have any sense of discrimination, he's unbiased. It is as we grow up, all this biasness and discrimination is taught to us through the education system, through the way this world operates. So nobody, one second, nobody, excuse me, I lost my thought. What I'm saying is,
That's okay. It's okay. Give somebody else a chance to get in there.
And you have a question, Ann?
Hi there.
Yeah, and
Okay. I just want to encourage Lauren and people who are thinking along those terms to think about Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was old in years,
yes,
but young in ideas, young in intention, young in abilities. All those things that were mentioned as being as old as were things that will discourage us
yes,
from action.
yes.
And I think what he is trying to do is to make us aware that, like a child, we can't do everything we want to. but we should do what we can. And age is not an excuse or a reason for inaction. You need to keep doing
Yeah,
what you're doing,
yeah,
knowing that it does have an effect,
yeah.
even if you're old. And
Yeah.
that's the end for me.
And there is no time. Time is not in the consideration of that statement. You are as young as your faith. It has nothing to do with time. You are as old as your doubt. You have nothing to do with time. You could have a 5-year-old that doubts, and you know what? They're experiencing the same kind of aging because they feel they're losing something. They're giving up something. So this is not about time measurements. This is about consciousness. This is about an awareness of mental attention to one's own sense of being. So you're completely, absolutely right. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a good example of the way you think, the way you process your life, because you get more life when you feel more aliveness when you change your mind about positive and negative. And you find that life has more meaning when you change your mental attitude. So it's not about time.
As time passes, we find it easier and easier to focus on our perceived lack of something.
You see, but
And
impatience.
your statement makes it
Yeah.
more clear that we need to pay attention to what we do have and
Yes.
use it,
Mhm.
rather than to focus on what we don't have and become paralyzed
That's
by
right.
that perceived lack.
Mental
It's perception
paralysis.
that counts. You're right.
Mental paralysis. All right. Are
Great.
we
Thank you, Lauren,
Question
for that
out?
question.